Okay, good evening. Welcome to the Southbridge Town Council meeting from Monday, January 25th, 2021, 7 p.m. by remote participation. I must read these agendas like 6 times to make sure they're correct. I never even saw the rescheduled, so I have no idea why it says rescheduled at the top. So I didn't catch that. So call to order. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15th, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place. This meeting of the Town Council is being conducted via remote participation only. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted. Every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. A reminder that persons who would like to view this meeting while in progress may do so by watching Southbridge Cable Access Channel 192 or by the remote information noted below. We will post a record of this meeting on the town's website at www.ci.southbridge.ma.us as soon as we are able to. A roll call vote will be required for all votes taken under this order. Okay, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, Madam Secretary.
Councillor Adams.
Present.
Councillor Catrona.
Excused.
Councillor Daniel.
Present.
Councillor Dow.
Present.
Councillor Jovan.
Present.
Councillor Lazo.
Present.
Councillor Marchetti.
Present.
Councillor Ryan.
Present.
And Councillor Steves.
Present.
We have a quorum. To accept the town considering Sunday, January 14th, 2021. Is there a motion?
So moved.
A motion and a second. A motion by Councilor Ryan, second by Councilor Adams. Any errors, corrections, or omissions? Councilor Adams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Page number 7, under Councilor's Forum, under my comments, he thanked the council chair. That should be the town manager. That's all I have.
Thank you. Any other errors, corrections, or omissions? Councilor Daniel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On page 6, toward the bottom, it says Councilor Daniel, etc. About in the middle of it, it says Councilor Danielle. I'm the male, not the female. So it's just Danielle.
Thank you, Councilor Daniel. Any other errors, corrections, or omissions? Councilor Ryan, did you have something? I saw your hand. Okay. Anybody else? Anyone else? Seeing none, roll call to accept as amended.
Councillor Adams.
Yes.
Councillor Daniel.
Yes.
Councillor Dow.
Yes.
Councillor Jovan.
Yes.
Councillor Lazo.
Yes.
Councillor Marchetti.
Yes.
Councillor Ryan.
Yes.
And Councillor Steves.
Yes.
Motion carries. Subcommittee reports. General Government, Councilor Steves.
We have not had a meeting recently, and I have not scheduled.
Thank you. Department of Public Works, Councilor Marchetti.
Thank you. We've had no meetings scheduled. Recently, no meetings scheduled. I do have some minutes that need to be approved, and so the next time we have a meeting, I'd like to get to those as soon as we can. Thank you.
Thank you. Education and Human Services, Councilor Catrona is not here this evening. Plan and Development, Councilor Adams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We had a meeting on the 21st of January where that agenda item was postponed until the next subcommittee meeting, and that's going to be scheduled as of right now, February 2nd. Waiting to hear back. Thank you.
Thank you. Protection of Persons and Property, Councilor Lazo.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we had a meeting Thursday, the 21st, 7 p.m. Most of the agenda items will be discussed and they're on the agenda tonight, and I have no further meetings scheduled. Thank you.
Thank you. COVID-19 public health and safety briefing. Chief Woodson and then Chief Normanton, I believe, right? Who wants to take the lead on this? Gonna be you, Chief Normanton? Okay, go ahead, Chief.
Could you put up that slide that I had sent you earlier? There would be our kickoff conversation with this information.
Give me a second. I had it all set for you, and now with the computer issues that I had, hold on. Hold on a second. If you want to speak for a minute, then go ahead and I'll get it back. I have to get to my email.
Yeah, so currently, just to let everybody up to speed on what's going on at the council, and more importantly, in the next couple of days, it's important that we push out a lot of information to the citizens. But I would talk about the vaccination center right now. Currently, Harrington is handling approximately 200 vaccines per day. They reported that this morning about that last Thursday and Friday, they did hit the number of 200. With the hopes of doing about 500 per day over the next several weeks. I did stop in there today. They've doubled the size of the registration area. It's a well-oiled machine. People come in, everybody's socially distanced with masks on. I cannot say how pleased I was during my visit there today. Jason Osborne, who is the emergency management director for the hospital, has really done a bang-up job. And obviously, Mr. Moore and Harry Lemieux are the two people responsible from the hospital side that's making this work. As we move into the next phase, the picture that Jack is, Mr. Chairman was going to put up is the released photo today of what phase 2 really is. So I'll just do a brief. Phase 1 is the phase that we're currently in right now. All of those bullet point items are still ongoing. So some of those people have just received their first doses. Firefighters, police officers, paramedics, healthcare workers. So if you recall and remind yourselves and your citizens when our constituents, when they call you and ask you, that phase 1 is still ongoing. So if they do, which they have said, phase 2 can start next week. We're still talking that you will not probably get an appointment closer towards the middle to the end of February when you do register for that. So phase 2 is individuals 75 plus years of age, individuals with 65 with 2 comorbidities, early education, which was the sticking point over the last couple of days. Obviously, Dr. Villar has been very forthright with his information and keeping the school system open. This is really important here because obviously early education and the teachers also need to be vaccinated. So they were moved up from the very bottom of phase 2 area up to the, as you can see, the 3rd bullet point. This is going to be very stressing for the way we got this all worked out. If we can get 500 people in there each day, it will take some time to get these everybody throughout town inoculated. I need to backtrack in regards to notification. Most of you, or maybe not too many of you, realize that we do have a town-wide alerting system. It's called Everbridge. Over the last week, between the Department of Health, Andy Pelletier, myself, and a few others, we've worked on with posting those links to the Everbridge site on the town's webpage. Councillor Adams has put it on his webpage. As of probably tomorrow morning, we will be putting out an Everbridge message to give everybody some direction to make sure that their system is working. And we'll be pushing out all vaccination messages through the Everbridge system. Our goal right now is to get the people that do not have access of the internet or a cell phone. I have worked with Pat Haddock. She is going to be working with pushing out, we made a flyer today through the Meals and Wheels system, working with several of their networking people at the senior center. We talked a little bit more about sending all of these flyers to 150 Main Street, 60 Charlton Street, and Tag. On that flyer will be a phone number that anybody can call to sign up for Everbridge. And if they call at that point, when they release the schedule for the phase 2 people, they can do both of those things. So working really hard to push out the information. The most important thing right now is getting people signed up for Everbridge. And obviously we will be sending out that information hopefully by the end of the week. That's where we really are right now. This has been a big wheel to be putting the spokes together on. And I can tell you, I think we're in a good place right now. But again, as the phase 2 opens up, this is probably the most important part, is that people, even though it's going to be released next week, you're still probably not going to get your appointment date until probably the middle to the end of February, as we move forward. That's kind of a quick synopsis, but there's been a lot more going on. But that's what I think is important. We need to push out. Any questions?
Questions of the chief? Councillor Adams?
Thank you, Mr. Chair to Chief. Can you please send me that flyer?
Yes, sir.
And then the other thing is, I understand the governor moved up, I believe it was 65 and older, with 2 specific issues that they have medically. And then obviously there's the 75 and older. Is there a certain time frame that they're looking for to do those first 2 categories? It's not, from my understanding, phase 2 is just not everybody. It's phase 2, and there's stages within those phase 2s, correct? That phase, each phase.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I can answer his question.
Go ahead.
So yes, Councilor Adams, you're correct. So obviously when the first phase was started, it did start with healthcare providers. And then it just kind of trickled down from the next bullet item to the next. Firefighters and EMTs started, and police officers probably started towards the mid to actually February. Excuse me, January 11th, I think was the date. So yes, there is a staggered for each one of those bulleted items that we had posted. I think the most important thing is I do know that a lot of the seniors do not have internet access. Obviously, the library is closed. I do know some of those people use the library for that. It's important to actually just see all of those diagrams, and the written documents are all available on the CDC and the Mass DPH website, which we will tag on all this documentation. When the Everbridge message goes out, you can get it either email, text message, and regular telephone if some people have them. So those links will be added to those so people can click right to them. The unfortunate thing is that we're trying to push out a lot of information, but trying not to get people confused.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Councilor Steves?
Yeah, quick question through you to Paul. Have you been talking to the schools about sending it out through their system? Because a lot of them would obviously have grandparents and things like that would be directly affected. And also, is it being written in Spanish?
Mr. Chair, can I answer his question?
Yep.
So yes, the school was contacted today. Dr. Villar has been completely wide open with communication. So we will be using they also have an Everbridge system within the school district. And also the hospital, believe it or not, has an Everbridge type of alerting system too. So I've hidden both of those today, and I get assurances from both of those facilities. And I'm sure we can figure out some way to push out the message by Spanish. We've done it before. We can make it happen again. Thank you.
Okay. Anything further? I just want to, for the public out there that's watching on cable access as well as YouTube, please make sure you check out the latest video on our Facebook Live through the that was conducted this week, where we had a doctor from the hospital out there that explained a lot of information. He provided a wealth of facts and next steps. So as we continue in this plan, I think today we're up around 200 to 300 vaccinations that the hospital has done. If you look at Gillette Stadium, they're scheduled to do 500 a day. So we're very close to what they are capable of doing. So it's a kudos to the whole team that has put this together to make sure that we're in a good position not only in Southbridge, but our immediate tri-community area. So thank you all that have participated in that. Any other questions? Seeing none. Next. Moving on. Chairman's announcements. I don't have any other announcements this evening. I think we covered quite a bit outside of the fact that we will have the special town council meeting continuation on, well, I do have a couple, I'm sorry, on Thursday evening. I did meet with the town, or discuss with the town manager the talk that we had at the last meeting about setting up a committee of the whole. So we'll be scheduling that within the next week. I did get an email from Councillor Adams on some of the topics. We'll be reviewing all those topics as well as the start of our budget session. So that meeting will be forthcoming in the very immediate future. Town manager, Mr. McCall.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. As you may know by now, it's posted on the town's website, and I asked Councillor Adams to post it on his Facebook page. We did receive a fact sheet from the Mass Department of Environmental Protection relative to the Northeast Center LLC's proposed construction of the liquefied natural gas plant on the Charlton Southbridge line on Route 169. They are looking to go forward and get an air permit. And so Mass DEP is in the process of putting together that permit. And once they have a draft, they're going to open it up for a 30-day public comment period. So that fact sheet does provide some information about the plant and does provide some instructions as how people will be able to comment on the project. I just, in the last day, received a version of this in Spanish, so I will have that placed on the website. I can give a copy to Councillor Adams, and I'll try and give it to some members of the Spanish-speaking community for dissemination. And as soon as we get a formal or hard date for this permit and the start of the 30-day period, I will let everyone know. Also, I just want to bring to the council's attention, this month I've received, earlier this month, I received a letter of interest from Councillor Ryan for the advisory board position on the Worcester Regional Transit Authority. As you may recall, last fall, they had sent an email to the town looking for someone to sit on the Rider Community Advisory Board. The only person to come forward has been Councillor Ryan. And so pursuant to charter, I will need council approval. So I'll send that up for a future agenda. Similarly, I did receive a letter of interest from Ms. Denise Clements for the Cable TV Advisory Board. I know that there's at least one, if not more, vacancies on that. And with our cable contracts coming up, I think it would be helpful to have some of those positions filled to work with our Southbridge cable television staff as we work our way through the negotiations. So I will also put that on for the next agenda. The only question I may have, Mr. Chairman, is if either of those have to go through subcommittee first. If that is the case, let me know and I will speak to the appropriate chairperson. And then lastly, it has come up, given the success of the vaccine distribution site and the scheduled phases that we're dealing with, that we may have a potential conflict with the town election in June. As I mentioned to some folks in town, I have spoken with Dr. Villar, and we are looking at a potential of using the middle high school gymnasium, and we are looking at the logistics of that. And once that becomes definite, I will make sure that that is posted. We'll work with the town clerk's office to publicize it. And as the date approaches, we could also leverage the Everbridge system to let people know. But we haven't officially stated that, but I just want to bring that to the council's attention. That is highly likely that we will be moving that location so that we don't have to disrupt the continuity of effort over at Chestnut Street for the vaccine distribution. And that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Town Manager. Councilor Steves?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to the manager. It's interesting you brought up the charter thing, because just as we were getting that little confusion with the last meeting, I got a phone call about the cable issue. And so the person was calling saying that they was asking for a little bit more about the status of the negotiations, and if what if we're looking into other services. He noted that FiOS is going into Quincy, right? Is supposed to be going into Quincy soon. So I don't know if you've had a chance to look into some of the alternatives.
Our initial discussions with our new town council have been primarily on what we would be doing with charter. We have talked about some of the other issues that were raised at previous council meetings. We've put together a tentative strategy, not that I would want to discuss it at this point in time. But we also have to go through some of the other requirements for renewing a license, which would be a public hearing, and we're setting up for that. So I can follow up with that question, Councillor Steves, and have an answer for you, either via email to the entire council or by the next meeting. But my recollection, though, I think I did pose that to both our current and former council, and the difficulty lies in the fact that it tends to be cost prohibitive for an additional provider to come into town, in most cases due to the infrastructure already being in place for the cable company. It's very hard for a competitor to come in. I understand that the most likely competitor tends to be Verizon because they've installed the fiber, but I will look into that.
All set, Councilor Steve?
For the moment, yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Councilor Ryan?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As the town manager noted tonight, I did submit my application for the WRTA advisory board for a commuter seat. I waited a month and a half really before I submitted this. I wanted to give the public time to apply for it. But after hearing of no one going forward and my frequent use of the public transit system, I felt it was important to bring some sort of mindset of a commuter here in Southbridge to the board to help make sure, and more in particular, to help increase access to the buses and the bus routes. So that's why I put my name forward. I wanted to put it out there that I did wait a while, but no one applied. So I put my name forward for the council's consideration. And when it comes up, I will back away from the dais during the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Ryan. Any other thing else? Seeing none. Presentation swearing we have done. Citizens forum, is there anyone in the audience that wishes to address the council? Okay, seeing none. I just circle back, Chairman's announcements. One other announcement while I'm talking about remote access, because I saw the remote access. Did get a follow-up email from Cable Access. They're still working on the hybrid so that we could meet in the dais and have the remote participation. They're just waiting on the sound individual to come in to make sure that the chambers itself is balanced to work with the system. So there was a delay on that. My understanding is the cable side of it, where we will be able to sit at the dais and be able to communicate with people online. It's completed. It's just the balancing of the sound system. So hopefully next month we will be able to be in the dais and have some hybrid type approach, just for everybody's knowledge. So any questions on that? Back to citizens forum, anyone? I don't see anybody out there, so. All right, item 10, vote to confirm the reappointment of Evelyn Rivera as municipal hearing officer for a 6-month period, effective immediately through June 30th, 2021. Ethics training and good standing. Is there a motion?
So moved.
For second?
Second.
Motion is second. Mr. Town Manager.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, what we're looking at this time is for the balance of the annual appointment to appoint Ms. Rivera. It's my understanding, speaking with staff, there's only 2 people in the building that are qualified to serve as municipal hearing officers. That would be my executive assistant, Ms. Tortoise, and Ms. Rivera. And at this time, for a variety of reasons, I cannot utilize Ms. Tortoise, and Ms. Rivera has served in that capacity, is my understanding, for some time. So I'm seeking the reappointment for the balance of the year.
Okay. Questions? Comments? Anyone? See none? Oh, Councilor Adams?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to the town manager, what does it take to become a hearings officer for the town? And are there other individuals that are looking at receiving that type of training to move forward? Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, to Councilor Adams. That's actually a question that I brought up, and we've looked into it. There is training that is offered through the state, my understanding, but due to COVID, they're not offering it right now. So once they're able to offer that again, we would open it up and to anybody that works at the town hall to see if they're interested in taking the class, and then we would have a pool if we ever needed somebody else to serve. So that is something we have on the list to keep our eye on, so that once that opens up, we'll open up opportunities should anybody else want to take the class.
Thank you, Mr. Town Manager.
Any other questions, comments? Seeing none, roll call.
Councilor Daniel,
Yes.
Councilor Dow,
Yes.
Councilor Jovan,
Yes.
Councilor Lazo,
No.
Councilor Marquetti,
Yes.
Councilor Ryan,
Yes.
Councilor Steves,
Yes.
and Councilor Adams.
Yes.
Motion carries. Item 11, vote to approve the transfer from account number 001220-5193000 tuition to account number 001220-524300 repair, maintenance of buildings and grounds in the amount of $3,000 to cover costs for planned building maintenance, Plymouth vent maintenance, and generator repairs for the remainder of fiscal year. Is there a motion?
So moved.
So moved. Second.
Motion is second. Ms. Town Manager, you want to go to the fire chief on this? Well, we have Councilor Lazo first with PPP. Councilor Lazo?
Mr. Chairman, the recommendation is favorable to the
Thank you.
subcommittee.
Ms. Town Manager?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This agenda item, as well as the next one, are related to the fire department. And given that we have Chief Normandin here, I would defer to him.
Thank you.
On these
Chief
two.
Normandin?
Good evening, everybody, again. Yes, this transfer is basically, this was an account, the last 2 years, it was underfunded. During the last year's planning process, we went to level funded again for this account. Cost of maintenance programs continue to go up. And that's where we are today. These Plymouth vent system is within it takes the diesel exhaust fumes out of the building. And then our generator behind the back of the building runs the fire department. My tuition account is going to have a little bit of free funds into it this year, because there was a third member when I budgeted that did not follow through with continuing the education. So there will be some monies available that I could hopefully transfer over, in this case, $3,000 into my repair and maintenance of buildings and grounds. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councilor Marquetti?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you. I was at the subcommittee meeting for this, and the thing that I was questioning about this is that the fire chief, he wants to move funds from the tuition to building and grounds. There's not really any explanation of what's wrong with the building and grounds, what the maintenance is. Is there something wrong with the ply movement maintenance machine? So I really don't know, not sure what the maintenance is, but like as the chief said, last year's budget was level funded by the town council. The town council asked the town manager to level fund the budget because of COVID was just raising its ugly head, and there was a concern that residents were going to be out of work and not able to keep up with taxes. So we were trying to keep the budget low to keep the taxes low. Your budget actually was not cut. In fact, your tuition was cut 15%, and yet you want to take money from tuition, which was cut, and put it into building and grounds, which was level funded. So it just doesn't really make sense to me. there are actually two building and maintenance line items in your budget. I'm not sure why we have two separate line items for the same thing. But I think that, I remember last year, about the same time, the same thing started to happen. Funds were being moved from salary and safety equipment for vehicle repair, and again, building and grounds. But the only problem I really have with it is it seems like, if you can't get some budget items approved, you put more money elsewhere. And then before the end of the fiscal year, you shift surplus money over to pay for items that you couldn't get approved. What I would rather see is a clean budget. Anything that left over would go into next year's budget appropriation. I don't think it's a good idea to be shifting money around like this. I just can't see that this is a good way to do things. I'd rather see that if there's an emergency, if something breaks down, that you use money from free cash rather than shifting money around. I don't see how you can even plan a budget if you're just constantly shifting money around as needed. So I would rather see it done that way. If you need emergency money, take it from free cash. But I would rather not see money being shifted around within the budget. And that's my only thing on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Chief, could I ask you, when you do the budget for tuition, say, I know the way I used to do as a department head, I would anticipate and ask my members, how many of you are going to take advantage of your tuition reimbursement this year? And I would have X number that would say that they would take it. Therefore, that would be my budget line item. And things happen in people's lives, things change, and they decide they can't take it for whatever reason. What is the approach that you do when you do that line item?
So that line item is in the collective bargaining agreement. December 1st each year, members of the collective bargaining agreement have to notify me of their willingness to get the reimbursement program for college tuition. I think sometimes when the budget is put together in that particular line item, you got to understand that nowadays college goes 5 semesters. You have, and I actually just spelled this out in my budget that I prepared last week that had to be passed in, but you have, we'll say spring session, then you have a summer session number 1, then you have a summer session number 2, then you have a fall session. There's 5 semesters that you have to appropriate for to get those funds in there. So that's where that figures and comes up. So this year coming up, moving forward, is 3 more employees. And we're just going to try to continue to move forward with educating our staff, which is quite important.
Okay, thank you. And a follow-up question as far as maintenance as well is maintenance is a moving target because you hope, again, from my past experience, that I would put certain money in for, say, repair of vehicles, hoping that I had enough money, and there were some years that I didn't have a lot of repairs and some I didn't. What approach is that? I know we'll talk about this more during budget season again, but is that the same there? What Councilor Marchetti had asked about the Plimo vent. What is the maintenance on that?
So, Mr. Chairman, the Plimo vent system, like I said, is the diesel exhaust system. It's been installed in the building for at least 15 plus years. Not only does it get a quarterly preventative maintenance person comes in, so that's a contract that we abide by to make sure that the system stays up and running. And then we also have repairs that need to be made to that system. It's an ongoing thing, and as I stated in the beginning of the opening of this of my discussion with this, is that this account had been underfunded several years prior to me taking over as the fire chief. Each year we did, Councilor Marchetti is correct, we transferred money out of other accounts to make these things happen. I can't forecast what's going to break. It's like the vehicles that we last year. We have $37,000 in vehicle repairs because our fleet is on the older side, and we had our tower truck go completely out of service. We had no aerial in town, and I did several transfers from $37,000. And I just saw it the other day because I was reviewing it. We went up to $55,000 of transfer, so there was quite a bit of money that we had to transfer. And again, I cannot foresee those things happening. And it is very difficult to juggle a budget when you're the previous town manager. I gave him my proposal with the increases in all those accounts. And as Councilor Marchetti said, we did go back to level funded because here we are right now. And again, I'm looking to make these things work within the fire station. I can't ignore them. The diesel exhaust is like the most important thing to keep the cancer causing diesel fumes out of the building. We'll do the best we can to keep the building clean too. So
One of the things, yeah, absolutely.
All right. Thank you, Councilor Adams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know what Councilor Marchetti is saying. I respect the fact that we had a level fund, and that's the tough part. And who knows what this year brings to us as well. All I would ask, and I brought this up last time and even last year during budget season, is even if we had a level fund, if we see that there's an account that's consistently over budgeted or under budgeted, we plan accordingly. If something that has been budgeted for $4,000 for 3 years, but we consistently spend $12,000, then we need to take a hard look at that line item. And the same goes to if something's budgeted for $12,000, but we're only using $4,000 for the last 3 years on an average. Why would we not take a hard look at that and actually increase or decrease it, whatever we have to do? Because the fact is, we still have to deal with these transfers based on the charter, and that's from 1 cent to $10,000. So I just hope we can kind of take a look at that this year as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Marquetti, you had something? Then Councilor Lazo.
I just wanted to respond. I understand when things are breaking, if something breaks, you need to maintain it. I get that, but I would rather see it, rather than shifting and money around within the budget, I would rather see you take that out of free cash. And the budget is the budget. You should work with the budget, and when there's money left over, it should go back into the budget for this season's budget appropriations, rather than continuously shifting money around. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Lazo?
I think Councilor Marchetti is correct. Budgeting is an art, and elected officials shouldn't allow floating money in a budget. A budget is, you have equipment that's aging, and we know we need repairs. No one's not going to repair your vehicle. No one wants to not have the clean air in the department. We know we need a building that needs in dire repair or replacement. We all know this, and this discussion always comes around during budget. What's your capital improvement budget? Why do you need this capital improvement on the vehicles or replacement? Why do you need this? The art of budgeting, to see if you're good at what you're doing, is during the year and what you're left, it really tells the tale on how you are as a department head. Now, we do have some unforeseen issues, and it's like what I always said during budget, it's like nailing Jell-O on a tree. How much salt and plowing money do you need? I don't know. We don't know how much snow we're going to get. But the thing is, the control of the finance during the budget season, as the money moves, and I'm not against transferring this money, but during the budget session, as Councilor Adams said, we as councilors have been talking about this for a few years now, and we just want to get a better grip on the finances. And how you do that is, if there's less money floating in the budget and there's more money in free cash and a stabilized tax rate, you can come back, and I don't think we're disagreeing on replacing anything or fixing stuff that's broke. I think what Councilor Marchetti's saying is what's been said quite a few years in a row. We just need a tighter number, more control, so there isn't so much money floating through the budget on some people beef up one budget every year, and it never gets used. So what we should be doing is putting our money where we could use it, or preserve it in free cash for a return on an emergency of a vehicle going down. I mean, nobody predicted the ladder truck. But then on the other hand, no one knew it was fully insured. But I mean, everything worked out. But we as elected officials, I agree, we need to work together as a department head, a manager, and council to get tighter numbers during tighter times. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? Okay. Seeing none? Roll call?
Counselor Dow,
Yes.
Counselor Jovan,
Yes.
Counselor Lazo,
Yes.
Counselor Marquetti,
No.
Counselor Ryan,
Yes.
Counselor Steves,
Yes.
Counselor Adams,
Yes.
and Counselor Daniel.
Yes.
Motion carries. Item 12, vote to approve the transfer from account number 001220-519300, tuition to account number 001220-524200, data processing in the amount of $850 to the cost for upcoming monthly internet invoices throughout the remaining fiscal year. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Council Lazo, you have anything else on this one? Are we good?
Again, this has been run through subcommittee and it was unanimously voted to pass. Thank you.
Thank you. Chief?
Great, thank you. Again, as we came through the beginning of July and August this year, we had a failure of one of our dispatch computers within the fire station. It was planned for replacement. There was quite a bit of setup to get that dispatch computer up there and running, so we did use some of the funds out of this account for that. But also cable, here we go talking about Charter Cable. Cable rates went up a little bit for the fire department, and again, the budget was adjusted to a level last year when my proposal was to increase it because I expected a 5 or 6% increase in the cable cost. So here we are. I'm looking for about $850 to take out of tuition to fund the rest of this account.
Thank you. Any further discussion, questions, Chief? Councilor Marquetti.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. Now, here's another one that, to me, it doesn't really make much sense, considering last November, you took $2,000 out of data processing and put it into something else called specialized services. So if you were short on that money, why did you remove $2,000 from data processing and last November? And also specialized services, I'm looking at specialized services. I'm not quite sure why that is any different than data processing. To me, they should be the same thing. So that one was a little bit confusing to me, why you took money out of an account that you said was shorted last November. Now you want to take some money out of tuition and put it back into data processing. I think you should have just left the money in data processing all along. And again, as I said on the last one, I realize when you have some problem, something needs repairing, then take it out of free cash. I would just as soon not shift money around to the budget. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Marquetti, and maybe the town manager can answer this. At this point, we have no free cash to take this out of. We do not have our certified free cash for this year. All our free cash from last year has been allocated to this year's budget. So we do not have a free cash amount to take out of. Am I correct in that, Mr. Town Manager?
We got an email from the DOR. I don't know if it was official or not. I'd have to check it. It just came in today. So I would have to get back to you on that. I don't know the.
No, but I'm just saying, at the time of this agenda item, we did not have a pocket of free cash that has been vetted through the town council or anything. All our free cash has been allocated to last year's budget. If we had to take anything, it would have to be out of stabilization or town council reserve.
I believe that is correct. Again, things are done a little bit differently here, but along those lines in my past experience would be the case, because in most years you allocate your free cash, and then you're in a city or town, it's the reserve fund as well as stabilization at this point. So I believe you're correct, Mr. Chairman.
I'm not opposed. I understand Councilor Marquetti's point. I really do. And maybe for future budgeting, but we do not have a free cash pot right as we speak today that I'm aware of in our budgeting and accounting process outside of town council reserve is the only part of money or a transfer from our stabilization fund. So that's my only point. I certainly respect his position about taking from free cash. But we just simply did not have that through our finance department as of yet. I saw Councilor Steve shaking my head. Am I correct, Councilor Steves, on that? He's muted, but go ahead, Councilor Marquetti.
Yes, as far as I understand.
Thank you.
Okay, you know, if you don't have it in free cash, then take it somewhere else. But I'm rather than shift money around within the budget, I would just as soon not do that. If he's got to find the money or from somewhere else, then from the stabilization or something else, then that's fine. But this is taxpayers' money in the budget, and to just shift it around like that, it doesn't make sense to me. It shouldn't really happen. I would rather see the money go back. If he's got extra money in some account there, then let's put that back into the budget. That's all I'm saying. And for when we do our deliberation, which I think is going to start in about a month, if I'm looking at it correctly. That's when we started last year, about a month from now. I think that's 90 days. But anyways, that's all I'm saying. I'd rather not see the shifting like this. It's not a good way to run a budget as far as I'm concerned. But thank you. Thank you.
All right, I won't. Okay. Thank you. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Councillor Jovan,
Yes.
Councillor Lazo,
Yes.
Councillor Marquetti,
No,
Councillor Ryan,
Yes.
Councillor Steves,
Yes.
Councillor Adams,
Yes.
Councillor Daniel,
Yes.
and Councillor Dow.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries. Item 13, vote to approve the transfer from account number 001210.518100 witness fees to account number 001210.524200 data processing in the amount of $4,000 to cover the increase in costs for our computer-aided dispatch CAD software and additional fees for the use of this criminal justice information system. Is there a motion?
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Councilor Lazo.
There's another agenda item that went through subcommittee and was voted unanimously for passage. Thank you.
Thank you. Chief Woodson.
If I could, good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the council, Mr. Town Manager. So in the subcommittee, I explained that every year this account's over. Last year I had to transfer about $2,900. I believe the year before I had to do more than that. We came through, and Mr. Marquetti was right when he had said last year during the budget cycle, I was well aware of these increases in our computer-aided dispatch. And for those of you that don't know, that runs all the operations of our police department. Our dispatch is sending police vehicles to various locations in our community. Cannot operate the department without it. I was well aware of the increase. I put in for the increase last year. Same thing with CJIS, the Criminal Justice Information System. License plates, warrant checks, criminal histories cannot work at a police department without it. I made the manager and the director of finance and the council aware of these increases, asked for the additional money. But with COVID, I was told it was going to be level funded and worry about it next year. And here we are. So I knew about this as a department head. I was well aware of the increase coming. I notified our manager at the time, said this is what we need to get this done. And I was told to put it on the shelf and wait till next year. So here I am again this year requesting this transfer.
Thank you, Chief. Any questions? Councilor Marquetti.
thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you. Again, this is my same concerns about this is with the fire department, that we keep transferring money around. I think that when I looked at the witness fees in the budget, you were budgeted at 58,000, but the year before you were budgeted at 57, but you only used 30,000. So I think that you could have easily said, you know, we don't need this much money in witness and moved it over to data processing. My other question about this computer data dispatch, I keep asking how much money have we spent on dispatch, and I haven't gotten any answers on that. I've heard about $1,000 chairs for the dispatchers, but I don't know how much money has been spent on this dispatch. And I personally would like to see some kind of breakdown, how much money has been going into this dispatch. I know we got about $100,000 in grants one year. I tried to get some answers on that. I think maybe that was spent already. So I would just like a breakdown, how much we have spent on dispatch. And I think going forward, if you need more money in that, take it out of the witness, because clearly you don't spend that much on witness fees. Thank you.
Go ahead, Chief.
That's not accurate. It's actually bordering on ridiculous, to be honest with you. The witness fees, because I don't know if you're clear of what that means, Mr. Marquetti. This year, we usually get about 57, 58,000 appropriated. We have no court time because there is no court. We're in a pandemic. Court has been closed since about March 19th. So this year, I'm going to have a substantial amount of money left in that account. Every year, I don't know when police officers are going to court. I look at the last 5 years, put that on a scale, average it out the last 5 years. It is absolutely impossible to determine how many police officers are going to go to court, how many hours they're going to be there, how many arrests we're going to make, how many moving violations we're going to have to go to for appeal. And I could go on for hours about the witness fees. That's the one account I have to ballpark. There's no other way around it. This is the first tonight as we sit here that I've ever been asked about pricing or cost of dispatch center. Unless you have a meeting with minutes in it, I don't ever recall ever being asked till tonight. But because you asked, out of respect for you and your position, I can easily send that to you tomorrow morning. But you make it sound like you've asked me several times. You have not.
Okay. Councilor Marquetti?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you, I was looking, the budget that I'm looking at, the amount of money that you spent was the year before COVID began, I believe. I was looking at how much you spent on witness fees, and it wasn't as much as you needed in there. But you know, I'm not trying to cut you down on how much you spent on it. I'm just saying I don't think this is a good way to do budgets, to keep shifting money around. I think I have asked before about the dispatch. I think I was sitting at one of Councillor Lazo's meetings in the police department, but that's all right. If this is the first time that you recall, then that's okay. I would appreciate seeing more about how much money you're spending in dispatch. It seems to me there's been a lot of money being spent in that department. So, thank you.
Councilor Lazo?
I'm understanding the transfer. I'm in favor of the transfer. It goes to subcommittee. We dissect the transfer. We justify the transfer, and then we vote it on council. The thing that's probably a stone in my shoe here tonight is we, the council, voted these numbers. You got a problem with these numbers? You should have brought it up during budget session. The budget session is where the dollars. And if there's any report that needs to be asked for, it should be go to the town manager. I know it's a new town manager, and I know he inherited a tremendous amount of garbage from the last guy, and he's playing mop-up guy. So now we have department heads in front of us here tonight, and we make it sound like we don't get information. I got a feeling that that's not the way it works. And if I have a problem with the budget, next budget session is when I cut the bottom line on these accounts and say, no, you don't need it. But the only thing that bothers me is I'm not the police chief. I'm not the fire chief, and they have to justify this stuff to us as councilors. And we as a council voted this money. So don't hang them out to dry by saying, oh, geez, this is the way it is. We shouldn't be doing this. This has been going on for 30 years. I'm not saying it's right. And I do agree with some previous speakers as far as, you know, a tighter budget, less money floating, I'm game. But we are part of the creation of the budget. We create the budget. Our professionals advise us, and we go to it and approve it. Now, this upcoming budget season, if we disagree and we do not use the money or we use too much money, then we discuss it at that point. But no matter what the vote is on the floor here tonight, I take full ownership of creating the budget as a councilor and being advised by our professionals. But I still think that there are some things that are like nailing jello on a tray. How many court cases are we going to have, or how many snowstorms we're going to have? If somebody can predict that to us, the only thing we have to go by is previous years. How good was it? How many men did we have? We added staff. We're fighting crime better this year than last year. Or maybe there was less crime. So, and then who knew what Covert was going to do to the budget? So I think really this budget discussion should happen during budget season. And I'm really on the side of a lot of the speakers here tonight that maybe we could do a better job as a council. But the thing is, there are some budget items you're going to beat your head against the wall and still not get it right next year, because it's just the nature of budgeting. We have to get things done to make sure we provide as a government. We are providing. If we have issues with our department heads, we take it up at budget session. That's the only thing I'm saying. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Steves.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a quick observation, kind of dovetailing on what Councilor Marchetti was saying. Although I understand your point, Councilor Marchetti, I was just thinking that we have that's exactly the reason why we put this transfer policy into effect on the council level to debate these transfers, so that it gives the departments a little more flexibility. I completely agree with the idea that if we can have a better control of where the budget money is, so that they don't have to transfer, that would be great. But unfortunately, it just doesn't work that way. And that's why they come to the council to do it, so that we have the chance to vet them and can authorize them, and so we know what's happening. To follow up on your statement about getting some more details on the dispatch through you to the manager and to Shane, it would be nice if we could get some of those details. I know that the project is basically done, as far as I understand it's done. And if you could kind of send us some final figures on how things happened and anything else that might need to be touched up on or whatever, that'd be appreciated.
Thank you. Councilor Marchetti.
Oh, thank you. I'll keep it really short through you, Mr. Chairman. I was at the budget meetings last year, and I did raise a lot of these issues. And I even asked for the budget to be frozen at a certain level, but it didn't happen that way, Councilor Lazo. So, but I did bring all these issues up. And again, to the chief, the police chief, if I didn't ask for those, then I apologize, but I thought I did. But now that you know that I would like to see them, I would like to see those numbers. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Dow, and then I'll go to the town manager and then to the chief.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. I agree with all the council what they're saying, but I think when we put Chief Woodson and we say we need more officer on Everett Street, we need more officer on Charlton Street. This has happened. I think we're giving him a lot of work, and now he's transferred money from account to account, just in case they need him for extra. We making like only $4,000. I know it's $4,000, but it's not like we're taking him from somewhere it being used in a different necessary thing. That's the money he need him. If he doesn't need him, you don't ask for him. And we always keep giving him work, give him extra. You got to do this. You got to move the sign. I think we should just approve it and continue. We're going to keep arguing on something, at the end, we're going to vote yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Town Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to weigh in and just say, I've been listening to Councilor's comments and I appreciate all of them. But at the end of the day, people have to remember that budgeting is really a forecast, and it's based primarily on assumptions made about past performance. And there's a lot of things that you can adequately predict. You can look at energy consumption in some cases, other things you can't. You have a warm winter or a cold winter, that can affect your heating bill, but your lighting may always be the same. But there are a lot of things that are really subject to great fluctuation: snow and ice, witness fees. You don't know how many arrests you're going to make. You look at this evening, we thought we might need an hour for that dog hearing, and we had more people online than we do at some of the council meetings we've had, and people wanted to weigh in. So you used your best estimates based on your past history when you're doing things, and you try and anticipate some fluctuation, but it is more of an art than a science some days, as was mentioned. I think Councilor Lazo said that. And, this will be my first budget working with you folks, and I will endeavor to take all that you've said into consideration. But, there are some times when you are going to misinterpret future events None of us really saw COVID happening. None of us saw that the courts would shut down, so he has a surplus on one side. Some things happen on the other side. There occasionally have to be interdepartmental transfers. And this is the process that you use where it comes to the council. Sometimes you have to make those adjustments. And I do agree that there are times that this will have to be hashed out in advance, and you try and look at your past budgets and the end of the year, what has happened, and that's how you go forward. So there will be occasions that this happens. And to the chiefs, both of them, there are certain things that you just can't anticipate. So just want to weigh in on that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Councilor Lazo?
Just a quick spot. Councilor Steve brought up a point that even though I think that Councilor Marquette's opinion it holds merit, the thing is the transparency to the taxpayer, as we do tonight, and we take it to subcommittee and we bring it to council, the oversight and accountability of this council onto those accounts, onto those department heads are happening here tonight. He brought it up, and I think that's a good point, Gus, that we're all sitting here. We want to do the right thing. But the last thing I want to do is not fund something to see something go wrong. And that's why bring it to the council, bring it to the subcommittee. Let's beat it up. Let's get it straight. And then let's appropriate it. That's, that's the way it works. So it's a forecast, but we have to adjust on the fly sometimes. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to address this point if I have to relinquish the chair, because I know some people sometimes have a concern about what I want to say, but I do feel that necessary to weigh in on a couple of things. One, when it comes to the dispatch center, I commend the two chiefs for what they had to do to try to get that dispatch center set up. It was a moving target. There was unforeseen circumstances. I'm all for the accountability. Let's get a final closeout of that project. But I think if anybody remembers, I asked very specifically in the town manager's interviews, what was your history with project management? Because we had a former administrator that did nothing to budget properly for that project, did not have a plan fully laid out, and made two chiefs do that with no oversight from that executive office. So I'm all for closing out that project and see where that goes. Because we transitioned from police officers running a desk to a full-time 24/7 dispatch center. So I'm all for the accountability on that. When it comes to budgeting, I'm unclear, and I'm all for the let's get the best budget we can, but I'm unclear on the fact that we're saying we have department heads that do their best, and to the town manager's point, forecast what you're going to spend, and then when there are shortfalls in their budget, and Councilor Steves is absolutely correct, before none of this would have come to council. There would have been changes within an entire budget that nobody would have to tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars. Now we're doing our fiduciary responsibility of oversight and accountability with the taxpayers' dollars while holding the town department heads accountable, because they still have to manage their budget within their line items. So while they're trying to take money from one line item to the other, that's still part of the overall budget. And they have to manage and finesse that as they go throughout the year. To take money just simply out of free cash doesn't really address, they could keep coming to the well. Hey, I need money. And at the end of the year, it goes forward. All great points for a discussion when it comes to budget. The one question and comment that I take umbrage at was a throwaway line by Councilor Marchetti about $1,000 dispatch chairs. To me, that's thrown out to the public that we bought $1,000 chairs for our dispatchers, and that's maybe exorbitant. That's a throwaway line that I take umbrage at. These dispatchers spent 24/7 in a chair. If you want to spend $150 for a bad chair for them to sit 24/7, that's irresponsible on us as department heads and employees. The police chief bought a state-of-the-art dispatch chair that a dispatcher sits 8 hours, 3 shifts, 24/7. So never use a throwaway line because we spent $1,000. I'll spend $1,000 every day of the week to make sure that our employees that have to sit in a chair all night, every day, in the worst conditions, I will spend that every single day, because that's good management to take care of an employee that works under tremendously difficult situations. I can sit in my little office chair fine for 8 hours, but when they're there and putting their stress on, they should have something that they work. So never use a throwaway line like that. That's my personal opinion. Councilor Dow.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. If I wasn't wrong, we was having police officer and firefighter on a dispatch. Now, I think the cost is reduced by putting dispatchers less money from, I'm not sure of the dispatcher union too. So I think we're putting less money for dispatcher from police officer and firefighter on dispatcher. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, is there any further discussion on this line item? Seeing none, roll call.
Councillor Lazo,
Yes.
Councillor Marquetti,
No.
Councillor Ryan,
Yes.
Councillor Steves,
Yes.
Councillor Adams,
Yes.
Councillor Daniel,
Yes.
Councillor Dow,
Yes.
and Councillor Jovan.
Yes. Motion carries. Next item. Vote to approve a transfer from account number 001210.518100 witness fees to account number 001210-573000 dues, subscriptions, periodicals in the amount of $400 to cover the increase of the cost of membership dues from the Massachusetts Chiefs of Police Association and the Central Mass Chiefs of Police Association. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Chief?
If I could again, through you, Mr. Chair, this was actually one of the accounts that was properly funded. What happened was in FY19, I had to transfer about $5,000 into that account. So the overall budget used to be for this account $4,500. The council was kind enough and the manager last year to raise it to $9,000 to cover any unexpected costs. Unfortunately, with the Central Mass Chiefs and the Mass Chiefs with COVID, and I don't want to blame everything on COVID. I said that during the subcommittee, but we could do no fundraising, the association statewide. So all the associations statewide raised all their dues. I could not have forecast that happening. I could not have predicted COVID. So by June 30th, I'll be about $400 short in this account if we pay all these association dues. And our Tip 411 app also increased their prices, less advertising, things like that. They're taking in less money because of COVID like everybody else. So that's why I'm here tonight. We're requesting the $400 increase. I don't believe I could have forecast this. Here I am.
Thank you, Chief. Councilor Lazo?
This also went to subcommittee for vetting and was discussed, and it passed unanimously to push it forward to council for a positive vote.
Thank you. Any discussion? Any discussion? See none, roll call.
Councillor Marquetti,
No.
Councillor Ryan,
Yes.
Councillor Steves,
Yes.
Councillor Adams,
Yes.
Councillor Daniel,
Yes.
Councillor Dow,
Yes.
Councillor Jovan,
Yes.
and Councillor Lazo.
Yes.
Motion carries. Item 15, vote to approve the submission of the Assistance to Firefighters Grant, AFG, in the amount of $222,787 with a town match of 5% of the total cost, which is approximately $11,139.35 for firefighter training as outlined in the grant application. Is there a motion?
So
So moved.
Second.
Council Lazo?
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to bring to light that this is a time-sensitive issue. It's good for the town of Southbridge and the fire department. So what we did was, instead of bringing it to subcommittee, we pushed it right to the council for discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Chief Norm, do you want Chief Hulick or?
So I just, thank you. I just wanted to make a brief statement on this. Just to bring everybody up to speed, the Assistance to Firefighter Grant, which is, the AFG grant. This is where we, for the past 3 years, we've been trying to get the automatic stretchers that you've all recently seen, hopefully social media wise, the power cots and power stretchers. So that was funded through another source through COVID-19. So our tool this year to turn around and again apply for this grant The topic of the highest priority items that come through this grant for approval are training classes. I will let Deputy Hulick speak a little bit further. If we want to take out, if we want to go down the road and use some free cash to pay for this, that would be fine. That would be $11,000. But we can talk about that at a later date or at the end of this meeting. Thank you, Deputy Hulick.
And through you, Mr. Chair, thank you. So the time-sensitive nature of this program is the notice of funding opportunity only came out about a week and a half ago. Until the funding opportunity comes out, we don't actually know where the priorities are going to lay for what we can apply for. Based on when the funding opportunity came out, we looked at it. There are really not any equipment opportunities that we have to apply for. Our radios were purchased by the AFG, so they're not going to replace them. We replaced our air packs. We replaced our gear. So we have gotten some significant funds over the last 10 years or so. And training that results in certification is the highest priority within the program. It's highly competitive. Last year, there was over $1 billion in requests. Last cycle, there was about 300 million. This year, it's 360 million that's offered. So in light of our accident in 2019, we looked at training the driver operators within the department. So when you go to the fire academy, you get basic firefighter training. You do get some pumps and hydraulic training, but you are not trained or certified as an emergency vehicle operator. In Massachusetts, we are exempt from commercial driver's licenses. So in many cases, we're taking someone that may have never driven anything bigger than a subcompact car and putting them in a vehicle that's 55 feet long and weighs almost 40 tons. We've adjusted our program since the accident, but this is an opportunity to provide certification level training, limit the town's liability, and it is a very expensive endeavor, and we're looking to do that through the grant project. So it comes out as just to put the programs on. Because of COVID, we have to put them on multiple times to cover all the employees. So just to put the program on, it's about $98,000 to bring the programs from the Mass Fire Academy and another commercial vendor. It's going to be a motor pump operator class, an aerial operator class, and an emergency vehicle operation class. The certification tests as well afterwards. And this provides for the cost of the classes, the cost of the certification exams, the cost of the materials, the books that we need to provide the employees, and as well as the overtime cost. There is no way that we would be able to provide this training in an on-duty status. So it does have to be done off-duty. So the total project cost comes in at $222,787, and federal program fees would be $211,647. And our 5% match based on our population works out to $11,140. So we're looking for your approval for this to move forward and reduce the liabilities. It does have a 2-year program, 2-year performance period, so that we have 2 years to complete the program if we were awarded funds. Thank you. Mr. Town Manager, you have anything to add?
No, I support this, Mr. Chairman. I met with Chief Normandin and Deputy Chief Hulick about a week ago, and we went over this particular issue, and I support it. It's a great way to get money brought into the town to support all the training that Deputy Hulick outlined, and a great way to save funds for the town by matching this grant. So,
thank you. Any questions? Councilor Adams?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just Deputy Hulick, when did you guys receive this grant notification?
It was about a week and a half ago is when the funding opportunity came out, and the close of the grant is February 12th. So with your approval tonight, I'll start submitting the information into the system, and it'll be put in before February 12th.
Thank you, sir. The only reason I bring it up is what we've been noticing is some of these grants from the state and probably has to do with COVID. These grants are coming out at the last possible minute, and we have to act upon them at the last possible minute. So I appreciate the chair bringing this straight to the town council with the subcommittee chair's approval. So thanks, Debbie. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Councilor Marquetti?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you, of course, this is sounds like a pretty good grant. I wouldn't want to turn it down. I am curious where the $11,000 is going to come from. I'm not saying I'm going to vote against it, but I would like to know where we are going to get the $11,000. Thank you.
Mr. Town Manager?
I don't believe that Ms. Harnois is on the call. I believe that there was a transfer form put together for this. I cannot recall, Mr. Chairman. I don't have the answer off the top of my head for this one.
Okay. We have town council reserve that we could tap into at about $90,000 if we had to. I'm sure there's some other monies that we could tap into, but that could be something and again, we don't even know if we're going to get the grant. So I think we have some available monies throughout the budget that we could go into. We have a healthy stabilization account too, if we had to. Correct, Mr. Manager?
Yes, I believe we can find the $11,000 if need be, and that would be one of the resources we could go to.
Thank you. Councilor Daniel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. I think this is a no-brainer. An educated police force, an educated fire department means ultimately a safer working environment for the people that are being employed by us. And in particular, the subject matter that we're looking for with this grant is, I think, well thought of, something that is necessary, and I'm definitely in favor of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Dow?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To you, Chief Norman, that grant, it's only for firefighter, or that apply to call firefighters, auxiliary, and EMT?
Deputy Chief?
The call firefighters are included in this program. Anything that we apply for under the AFG has to account for every funded firefighter position.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Councilor Steves?
Yeah, just one quick question. When will you know whether you get the grant?
We would anticipate sometime over the summer. It closes in February, the beginning of February. They do an electronic scoring process. Then it goes to peer review. Then as they move the applications forward from that point, they basically put, under normal circumstances, they put a bunch of people in a hotel to read grant applications and look at awards after that. Now, obviously, they've been doing them with remote sessions like this, but we would anticipate at some point over the summer.
So, Deputy Chief, it's conceivable that it would be something we would budget for July 1 anyway, right? Correct?
Correct.
Okay. Councilor Laza?
Just a quick question, Deputy Chief Ulick. This grant, is it based off of economics? Is it based off of need? Is it competitive? I'm not understanding the approach from Southbridge's viewpoint. I mean, what do we have to do that we get this grant?
So all of those things that you bring up pull into it. It is a very competitive grant. You do need to show a financial need for it, and obviously we don't have $120,000 extra to put in our overtime budget to accommodate this program, and we don't have $98,000 to ask the Mass Fire Academy to come out and put this program on either. So we certainly have a financial need for it. It's a series of narratives that go together with our things that get scored against our call volume and our budget, and all of those aspects play into it.
And you're the one that is putting the grant together for the town of Southbridge?
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, anything that we can do, Chief, to maybe get some help from our federal and state partners, we will certainly do on your behalf.
Thank you.
So, and thank you for continuing to seek out those grant opportunities. I know we haven't been we have been successful on some, And hopefully we can continue to be successful with this one. So thank you. Any other questions? Roll call.
Councillor Ryan,
Yes.
Councillor Steves,
Yes.
Councillor Adams,
Yes.
Councillor Daniel,
Yes.
Councillor Dow, Councillor Dow,
Yes.
Councillor Jovan,
Yes.
Councillor Lazo,
Yes.
and Councillor Marquetti.
Yes.
Motion carries. Good luck, Chief.
Thank you.
Item 16, a deletion of the indemnification IOD bylaw review board article bylaw review. Deletion of the indemnification IOD bylaw review board article XV1I. This is the second reading. Ms. Town Manager, do you have anything you want to add from the last meeting or anything you want to state to the public on regards to this?
No, just a brief synopsis of what we discussed previously. I did a research project to find out why we have this particular methodology for reviewing the injuries of officers and firefighters in the line of duty. And it just appears to be much more efficient to allow the other option under the statute, which is allowed to go through the manager's office. Currently, it goes through a panel that consists of the manager, the town council, and a physician. And it does require some delay as well as additional costs to go that route. In researching it, there was no written rationale for doing it back in 1984. And I believe Councillor Marquetti was the one who came forward and said at the time there was some issues with the manager. But I think, working with you so far for the first 4 months, I've at least earned your trust and hope that you would understand that I would be doing this in the best interest of the taxpayers and to try and make these go through as efficiently as possible for our men and women serving on our police and fire department.
Any questions, comments? Seeing none, this is the second reading. Will be held over to the next meeting for the third and final reading and adoption of the deletion. Item 17, amendment to the Southbridge zoning bylaw introducing, adding section 9.3, American Optical Flex Overlay Zone. This is the first reading. I guess go to Mr. Town Manager for an explanation first, and then I think we have Eric, and we'll go from there.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the bulk of the explanation, I'm going to hand it over to Mr. Rumsey, but I would just say that what is proposed here is similar to what we did in a prior community I worked in, and the end goal is really to achieve what is often referred to as a live, work, play, where you make changes to certain potential economic development zones within your community. You allow certain activities and expansion of capabilities for the repurposing of certain parcels and existing structures, and usually works to the town's betterment in most instances, and it allows us to be more flexible and adapt to what's going on. As we see recently with COVID, people's way they work, how they commute, where they're choosing to live has all changed dramatically in the last year. People are moving from urban areas. They're looking to work, many instances, from home. These type of overlays in what's proposed here could conceivably repurpose older mill building to allow you to have a mixed use of retail, residents, and some commercial. So conceivably, you could have someone living there, working there, and then the evening shopping at a retail establishment. And that's just a general overview. And for the details, I would defer to Mr. Rumsey, our planner.
Okay, I guess I'll introduce two of these amendments to the Southbridge zoning bylaws, introducing and adding section 9.4 Globe Village Flex Overlay Zone, and amendments to the Southbridge zoning bylaws, section 4 use regulations, including table 1, table of uses. These are all for the first reading, just so that Eric doesn't have to repeat himself. I think it'd just be, he can introduce all the topics there, if that's okay. All right. Eric?
Certainly, yes. Thank you very much for your time this evening. Through you, Mr. Chair. So the way that we kind of came about this, to give you a little bit of history, we were approached by the owner of the American Optical Complex regarding a potential future residential project that he's pursuing. And, rather than going through the 40B process like he had to do with the 5 to 15 K Street location, we worked together to come up with this flexible overlay district, which would allow a mixture of uses even within the same building. Ideally, we'd like to see a mixture of commercial and residential uses, as we have seen from research and from calls with several different people looking for industrial space, that the rehabilitation of these older mill buildings is cost prohibitive for a modern day manufacturing facility. So rather than having these buildings sit empty and potentially costing, the owners, the town, untold thousands in, maintenance and, potential environmental liabilities, we're looking at this set of bylaws, both the American Optical and the Globe Village flex overlay districts. It's really a method to utilize these older structures in a mixed use capacity, be it a mixture of commercial and industrial, or industrial and commercial and residential, or residential and commercial, whatever it may be. So in addition to just the American Optical Complex, we've expanded this out, included the shop property and several other properties going all the way up to Gulfwood Road. All of these properties are zoned as manufacturing. The use in the manufacturing would not, if there was a use in manufacturing, rather, that was a use by right, that would still be allowed by right. We're just kind of wanting to make sure that we have options open here. This is a special permit application or bylaw. So any of these uses in here would be done by special permit. I think we've got a really good product on our hand here, and a good bylaw. It's based upon regulations that I wrote for the town I used to work with in Connecticut for their old mill buildings. And we used it with quite a large degree of success. We managed to turn 2 old mill buildings into thriving residential structures, and they were working on a third when I had left the employee of the town to come and work for you all at Southbridge.
Okay. Councillor Adams?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, you can hear me. Just this is to Mr. Rumsey. During the public hearing process, was there any big changes, any concerns from residents or anybody else?
There was not that we had seen, and from what I've seen, both the American Optical and especially the Globe Village, there seems to be a lot of interest in making and getting these bylaws approved and in place. We have quite a few potential developments that are kind of waiting in the wings for these to come into fruition, so that they can start the special permit process. As far as major changes, no, there were not really any major changes. There were a few minor changes, which are shown in red in this copy. And that's why I sent you a copy that is in red. So after the public hearing, there were a few changes that were requested to be made and some clarifications that needed to be done. The planning board took they did their due diligence. We did a lot of discussion and a lot of research into this, and made, I think, the necessary changes to make this bylaw even smoother than what we had discussed during the public hearing.
So, thank you, Mr. Rumsey. I will say maybe my printer's off kilter, but all I got was black and white copy. I didn't see any red changes in here. But that being said, I will say thank you for the product, for all you guys' hard work on this, especially with some of these businesses that are looking into coming into these two areas right now. So I just want to thank you and whoever else worked on this. I think it's a good product, and I'll be supportive down the road. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Ryan?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. I also just want to thank the planning board, Eric, and everyone for their involvement in this. This is the way of the future. I've gone to so many mill buildings that have been turned into not only residential but commercial spaces, and it's the way of the future. We're seeing it all over the country, not just here, but a lot of these old mill buildings that just can't be brought up to code for today's standards are being used in this way. And why not make it into usable, taxable land again? So thank you guys. This was a wonderful product, and you guys did a lot of good work.
Thank you. Any other Councilor Lazo?
If I may steal John Daniels' line, this is a no-brainer. This is economic development that everybody talks about. This is what we need, and I think that this is a step forward and a breath of fresh air for some of the areas of town. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other? Councilor Dow?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, to you. Like all the council say, it's a good idea. The only thing I'm concerned, they're saying commercial businesses and residential as well. And as we see, everything started turning as an apartment, small condo. And my concern is, are we going to get some businesses, or is just going to be all residents, like a call a project? I'm not sure if I'm saying it right, like different towns or city. It's just all building turned to a project, and no businesses there. I'm not sure if we need to put some specific language there, or leave it the way it is, and then in the future we have just I don't know if I'm going to say it right, project, pretty much. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other councilors? Eric, for the record, the public hearing, when was the public hearing held on that?
The public hearing was held November 18th of 2020.
Okay. Now, I know we did have it on the front of the banner there for a while there, so that residents could look at that. We had announced it at a couple of council meetings, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so we have done quite a bit of outreach to try to get this out to the public and all that, correct?
That's correct. In addition to it being on the banner on the main page of the website, it's also been on the planning boards on their left-hand column for several months now, and as things have been updated, that's, the updates have been posted as well. And so the language that you have in front of you this evening has been on the planning board's website since early December, when they made the changes after the public hearing.
Okay, thank you. All right, this is a reading, so it does require a reading of the bylaw. So what's the pleasure on the council? Councilor Lazo?
I'd like to make a motion to waive the reading.
Okay. There's a motion, a second. Any discussion on waiving the reading? This is the first reading of it. Councilor Daniel, did you have anything? I saw your light turn green. Okay. And I know we've had this conversation before about waiving the reading. We did have a legal opinion that we could waive the reading unless somebody opposed, then we would have to read it. If there's no opposition to that, we just have to make sure, and I would ask the town manager's office and Eric to make sure that this is done. All councilors do have a copy of, Councilor Daniel, did you have some?
I just want to say that there is past precedent for the council waiving readings going back to the early 80s, that some recent information was discovered.
Yeah, and I think, thank you, Councilor Dana, for that. I mean, that was, thank you to the town manager for finding that, because I think there was conversation that had never been done before. So that was great. To past precedents is always nice. So we just have to make sure that the following procedure, that a copy of the complete bylaw amendment be provided to each member of the town council, be made available to any media and any citizen requesting same. The chairman of the town council asked the council to waive the reading, which I did, of the entire bylaw amendment, subject to any objection. If the proposed vote is moved and adopted, the council clerk may read only aloud the title and proposed of the bylaw amendment, which I already read. So is there any opposition to waiving the first reading? Seeing none, roll call.
Councillor Steves,
Yes.
Councillor Adams,
Yes.
Councillor Daniel,
Yes.
Councillor Dow.
Yes.
Councillor Jovan,
Yes.
Councillor Lazo,
Yes.
Councillor Marquetti,
Yes.
and Councillor Ryan.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll make sure that this gets back, it's on the website. We'll make sure that this copy is available for anybody who wishes. They can contact the town officers. Amendments to the zoning bylaw introduced and added in section 9.4 Globe Village Flex Overlay District. First reading. Is there a motion to waive the reading of first reading?
Make a motion to waive.
Is there a second? Any second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion on that? Councilor Marquetti?
Then I have no problem with this, but if there was some ruling from the 1980s that you found, I would like to take a look at that as well.
That was a precedent that if you read the attachments to our previous town council packet, including tonight, in those minutes, it was,
Okay.
I think it was in the last one, there was a precedent. Well, there was a councilors voted to waive the reading of the indemnification board bylaw.
Oh, all right, thank you.
So that's where we found that.
All right.
Councilor Adams?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. To Councilor Marquetti, it's on agenda item number 16 in the back.
Any other discussion on that? Seeing none, roll call.
Councillor Adams,
Yes.
Councillor Daniel,
Yes.
Councillor Dow,
Yes.
Councillor Jovan,
Yes.
Councillor Lazo,
Yes.
Councillor Marquetti,
Yes.
Councillor Ryan,
Yes.
and Councillor Steves.
Yes.
And to any residents that if you review the proposed bylaw amendments, if you have any questions or concerns, or like us to take a look at anything, please notify the town manager's office or a councilor, and we'll gladly take a look at that and bring that to the floor for any further discussion on the amendments to these bylaws. Amendment to the Southbridge zoning bylaws, section 4, use regulations, including table 1, table of uses. This is the first reading. Motion to waive the reading, Councilor Steves.
Mr. Chairman, I actually have a bunch of things I would like to amend in this bylaw.
Okay.
First off, if you look at the chart itself, there's a lot of real weird printing things in there. I don't know if that's just my computer, but there's a lot of weird things in there in various sections of the chart that don't make any sense. I think they're trying to say something, mostly yes, SPR, but they come out in weird letters. I don't know if your version did or not.
I get a real weird echo on you there, Councilor Steves. Is it echo?
Yeah, I can hear it. I don't know where it's coming from. Hold on a second. Okay, I don't know if that would prove anything. I still hear something. I don't know where it's coming from. Anyway, so and
Somebody in your house got a phone listening to somewhere else?
I know I don't. I don't know if anyone else does. Okay, anyway. So there were several specific things in here that were weird printing things that need to be corrected. But my biggest concern is, and I raised this during the hearing, and I think if you read the column that I wrote for like 2 weeks ago, you'll probably know where this is coming from, about the commercial solar under 5 acres and over 5 acres. The way it is currently being phrased, I would like to see residential 1, 2, and 3 be no for both of those. They're currently listed as special permit. And under commercial solar above 5 acres, the residential one is something that looks like NSJ : whatever that means, which should be no. That's what I think. So,
All right. Is it possible to put that in writing and send that out to us so that we can take a review at the next reading?
absolutely.
Okay. Anything else on that?
At the moment, no.
Okay. Was there a motion to waive the reading of this? In a second.
Hey, I'll make a motion to waive the reading.
Second.
All right. And so, Councilor Steves, you'll submit that whatever information to us so that we can know exactly what you're looking at. And Eric, if you can review that table to make sure it's cleaned up.
Of course, it looks like potentially some issue with the conversion from Word to PDF happened there. I'll send you all the Word copy, which I know is correct.
Okay, thank you. Eric, I guess once we get that written, whatever Councilor Steves is looking at, we can, where the planning board and conservation or whatever has to do that. We can debate that. So we have some idea on pros and cons for that. Okay.
Of course. So I understand what Councilor Steves is looking at there with commercial ground mount solar being a yes. For up to 700 kilowatts being a yes in R1, R2, and R3. That's current. That's how the current bylaw is. So we're cleaning up that language a little bit by saying yes, it's by by site plan review. So it is allowed by right with the site plan review application. The commercial ground mount over 700 kilowatts or on 5 acres or more with or without battery storage in R1 was it was a no currently, and it's being proposed to go to a special permit use. And so the reason for that is because we have heard from residents in town who own property that is in the R1 zone. Typically we're looking at farm fields. We're not looking at forested land for these situations. And they're saying they want the option in the future if the substation is upgraded, if the lines are upgraded, and the grid can take more solar power, they want the option to be able to utilize their farm fields for that purpose.
Okay. Councilor Steve?
I understand that, but my concern is the fact that although some of it is farm field, some of it is in fact open forest, as we've seen up on Dresser Street, Dresser Hill Road, and it's been a huge mess up there. There's multiple. One of them has been especially bad, but there's so many acres of area up right around our high school have been converted into solar fields that it's a serious burden on that part of town. And I don't want to see the other parts of town turning into that. Okay, solar fields are not farms. And I have a problem with the idea of taking some of our existing farmland, even if it isn't currently being used, and turning it into something like that, because in the future, given the way the economy is, given the way the climate is and other issues, we may end up needing that farmland. And I think it would be really important to keep that as natural as possible, both in terms of the farmland and the forests, because we may need it in the future, because it's ultimately from a philosophical point of view, it's alive, and solar fields are not. And I have an issue with trying to promote more industrial use of residential land and open space when the long-term concerns have never really been addressed in terms of what we can do with the solar arrays themselves when they end up having to be decommissioned in 25 or 30 years. Theoretically, there are services out there that can recycle them, but the only one I'm aware of that's actually up and running is Veolia in France. There's nothing in the US that can be done at this point. And many of the laws don't allow it to happen anyway, so it just ends up being landfilled. And I think there's way too much of this out there now. It's promoting, while it is while it is indeed better than using fossil fuels, I think the solar issues themselves outweigh in the long term are something we need to be seriously looking at in terms of not using as much energy as a whole, because this, to me, this doesn't make any sense from an environmental perspective, and it isn't working, and I don't think it's beneficial in the long run to our community.
Thank you, Council. Any others? Councilor Lazo?
If I may, I'm not a big fan of the solar farms in town myself. Up at Southbridge High School, we built a brand new middle high school with beautiful views off the backside of the school, and the whole purpose of nestling that school up there was part of it was because it was out in the outskirts of town. I drove up there. I want to say it was about a couple months ago, and I drove up by the softball fields, and it looked like a bomb went off. It does nothing for the countryside. I mean, if everybody's happy about the savings on the energy, fine, but there's a downside to every good thing, I guess. And if I never see another solar panel, it wouldn't be too soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Adams?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To Mr. Rumsey, you know what, I was looking at the PDF that we received from the executive assistant over at the town manager's office. I think it was all black and white. And can you say something about it was colored? You had red in there for any changes?
Yes, that's correct.
I was just looking at the PDF, and maybe it's just my computer, but I didn't see any color whatsoever, just black and white. So if you could send that off, again, I'd appreciate it. That way I can see what changes were made. The other thing I had, Mr. Chair, was this Councilor Steves last year, and I respect your opinion on the whole thing with the solar not farms, but solar areas. But you brought up on one of your agenda items to put a moratorium on the solar fields. There you go. There's the word. And where did that go? Couldn't that go through General Gov again to put it on instead of stopping it here? Take it back to General Gov to take a look at that again? Thank you. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilor Steers.
I mean, I can definitely answer that. One thing is that we had talked about that moratorium actually with the planning board, and at the time they had said that the national grid energy system had been overloaded already, so that they saw no need to go through a moratorium. However, the problem with that is that the way the moratorium is set up is that it's set up in such a way that you use it to create zoning bylaws for towns that don't already have them in some form. So I don't know if we would legally be allowed to do a moratorium because we do have zoning bylaws. That's why I think since we are looking at the zoning bylaws and now, I think that if we want to make sure we can protect the outlying areas of our community from this kind of development, the way to do it is to simply say no in the residential areas. Right. That's why I'm proposing it this way.
Thank you, Council. Appreciate it.
Thank you. So if you could put that in writing so we all understand that would be beneficial. Any further discussion on waiving the reading? Okay, roll call.
Councilor Daniel?
Yes.
Councilor Dow?
No.
Councilor Jovan?
Yeah. Oh, do you want to read it, Councilor Dow?
Oh, that's for the reading? Yes.
Reading. Yeah.
Yes. Then change my vote. Yes.
Got it.
Okay.
Councilor Jovan?
Yes.
Councilor Lazo?
Yes.
Councilor Marquetti?
Yes.
Councilor Ryan?
Yes.
Councilor Steves?
Yes.
And Councilor Adams?
Yes.
Okay. So that's the first reading. Amendments to the Southbridge, item 20, amendments to the Southbridge Code of Bylaws, Wetland Protection and Conservation. This is the first reading, July 25th, 2021. Taking the lead on this one, is this Eric as well? So Eric?
Certainly. Yep. So this has been a long process that started with, I believe, my predecessor. and it's been continuing through the about 2 years that I've been working here with the town. So the purpose of this bylaw is for wetlands protection. Specifically, it gives the town more teeth when it comes to violation remedies rather than having to wait for the state, to kind of handle these violations for us. We have a couple outstanding right now that are just sitting on the back burner at DEP because they are they're working from home still, and they're not the courts are closed and things, so they're not processing these violations as they should, in my opinion, I suppose. So we've written, these bylaws. They were based upon recommendations from several other towns and from the Massachusetts Association of Conservation Commissions, their model bylaws. I think we've done a fairly good job in getting something out here. And in my talks with the Conservation Commission after a couple rather of the General Gov subcommittee meetings, where there was some concern with changing some of the language or not. The ending consensus was that it's better to have something than nothing, which is what we currently have. So these bylaws are, I think they're very well written. I think they will help us do our jobs, both the Conservation Commission and myself as the conservation agent. They give us some bite to back up our bark.
Just a quick question. When you say it has more bite in the back, are you saying that we're going to be more stringent than the state regulations? Is this what this does?
It does. Short answer is yes, Councilor Lazo. The long answer is that these are based upon the state laws. What we have added in here is we followed along with the current finding bylaw for zoning violations and building violations. And that is the part that we have been able to add in here. That's really what gives us the bite to our bark.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Adams?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Eric's probably going to remember when I brought up before about this. On the first page under 9 TAC 203.1, the last paragraph in there. And I took a look at some of these other town bylaws, and though this is pretty common, a common statement in there, it is different than some of these other places these other towns I looked at. But the commission, its agents, officers, and employees shall have authority to enter upon private owned land. Again, I'll go back to a place on Alpine Drive when the Conservation Commission just showed up and started going on private property that had no identification on them and started looking around without knocking on the resident's door to let them know that they were present to take a look at a wetlands that was over there. So my thing here is, though this may be lawful, and that's okay if it's lawful, but I'd like to, is it based on the Mass General Law 131, subsection 40? Is it based on the CMR? So I just kind of like to have a better idea of where this language is actually coming from. Because when I looked at the Wetlands Act, I didn't see that in there. That's the only question I have. Maybe you can answer for me.
Sure. Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, that section is, again, that is one of those areas where we are a little bit stricter than the state, but we still have the Conservation Commission does have the right to enter private property. For example, when there is a notice of intent and then an order of conditions, they have the right to enter that property to check up on that order of conditions, and then at the end of a project to issue a certificate of compliance. They always go and do a site walk at that point. This kind of expounds upon that and gives us, that the ability to enter property when we have suspected violations. Now, myself and the current Conservation Commission, at least the vast majority of them, I won't say for everybody because there's typically not everybody goes to the site walks that I post and things. When we hold site walks, when we go for looking at enforcement actions, when they go for certificate of compliance inspections, the first thing that we do, if there's a house there, we knock on the door. We introduce ourselves. I have a badge that has my title on it. Several of the commission members also have badges with their photo and their role as a Conservation Commission member. Those badges get shown, and we typically do not have any issues from the townsfolk. In addition to that, I never take my personal vehicle. I take one of the town vehicles. So, coming up to the house in a vehicle with a town seal on it, that tends to help also. So people can look out their window into the driveway and see, okay, it's a town vehicle. I understand your concerns, and in a lot of ways, I don't disagree with them. I think there is potential there for some misuse in the future. But with the commission as we have currently, I don't see this as being an issue.
Just to follow up, Mr. Chair, just to follow up real quick, I don't have a problem with the fact that you have the certification and you have the intent. That's all notification. I got that. And you're here, and I trust you, and I trust the commission, conservation board as well. But when you're gone, when those members are gone, are we going to have that same? Are we going to be afforded that same right? So, though common sense should prevail on this, not always does it. So I would, and I have no problem writing up into this some requirements that they must show if that's a town vehicle with your IDs and knocking on the door. My fear is that there would be overzealous individuals within the commission that they overstep their boundary and then somebody ends up getting hurt. That's all I'm looking at. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Marquetti.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you. When I look at that line that Councillor Adams is talking about, it does finish up by saying that although they can go on somebody's property, they are subject to the Constitution and laws of the United States and the Commonwealth. So I would think that that would be enough protection. But by all means, if we wanted to add something in there that they have to provide badges or something, I don't really have a problem with that. I think that it's a good idea to have a wetlands bylaw in this town. We don't have one, and I think it's a good idea. I went on the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act website, and one line that kind of stood out to me was that said, many cities and towns have adopted local zoning or non-zoning wetland ordinances or bylaws that are stricter than the act, which brings me to another thing there. It's like, I think that this is a good idea and I support it, but I do think that Councillor Steves should consider adding this to the zoning bylaws as well as just the code of bylaws, because that's what it says. It says that it can also, some cities and towns also have a zoning bylaw. That's what the Massachusetts Act says. But anyways, the other question that I wanted to ask, just get a clarification. I'm sure there's an answer for this, but this was worked out by the Conservation Commission, which is a quasi-judicial board. And I know that some councillors in the past have questioned whether we have to vote on something that's been done by a quasi-judicial board. I'm sure there's an answer for that. I'm just was curious if we could get a clarification on that. I know that the Board of Health made some bylaws that we didn't have to go over. And I know that there was the Liquor Board that made some changes that we, at Councillor Adams, questioned whether we had to even vote on because they are a quasi-judicial board. So that's all I would like, just some clarification whether this is really even necessary. It probably is, but I'd appreciate a clarification. Thank you.
Well, I will go to Council Steves in a second, but I believe that because this is a bylaw, it has to be voted on by the council. Board of Health put regulations in place. The Liquor Licensing Board puts regulations in place. And I believe that's the difference because they are regulations and not bylaws. This is a general bylaw of the town of Southbridge, so therefore has to be voted on by the council.
I thought the Board of Health was a bylaw, but thank you.
No, regulation. Council, I believe it's a regulation, but we can follow up on that. Council Steve?
Yeah, I was going to say pretty much what you just said, Mr. Chairman. As far as I understand, I kind of understand it the same way as you do. One of the questions that I had, and as everybody, just for the record, everybody knows that my partner is on the Conservation Commission. And I just wanted to point out that they have had these IDs, as I think Eric pointed out a little while ago, that they've had photo IDs from the police department for many years now. And I think that I think that they recognize that having those when they go on properties is both protection for the landowners and themselves. Because after all, I can understand what Councillor Adams was saying earlier about somebody not understanding what they're there for. Unfortunately, could easily come out with a gun or something, or set their dogs after them or some such thing, and that would not be good for anybody. So, I think I understand where you're going with that, and nobody wants that to happen. So, and they certainly don't want that to happen either. So, I think it's the idea of making sure that they. I think the issue really just comes down to just making sure that people, whoever is on the Conservation Commission, or for that matter, any other board in this town, needs to be trained properly in how to work with the community. That's really all there is to it. It's a fairly simple thing, just common sense. Well, that's all I really had to say at the moment.
Thank you. Councilor Adams?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just going to reply to Councilor Marchetti, but on that note, I completely support the wetlands bylaw. That's the only problem I have with this whole document. I thought they did a really good job on this, besides that one area. And I like just to the chair, I can work with Eric and see if I can come up with some language that would be acceptable. But we'll see how it goes. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions about the bylaw itself? This is a reading. Did I get a motion to waive the reading?
Motion move.
Second.
There's a second. Motion a second. Roll call.
Councillor Dow?
Yes.
Councillor Jovan?
Yes.
Councillor Lazo?
Yes.
Councillor Marquetti?
Yes.
Councillor Ryan?
Yes.
Councillor Steves?
Yes.
Councillor Adams?
Yes.
And Councillor Daniel?
Yes.
Okay. The second reading will be at the next meeting. If we can get that information, and then we can review it to see if we want to take any action to add it on or not. Okay, I think that Council's forum, correct? Go back to the top of my list. Council Lazo.
Yeah, I would just like a quick comment. I know we've been here a while. I was ultimately impressed with the attendance of the dangerous dog bylaw hearing. We raised the tax rate. The council votes on that. The council votes on a lot of big financing and a lot of bylaws and a lot of impact on the town. But I've never seen this many people, at a meeting. I thought that was interesting, and I'm looking forward to Thursday's meeting to find out the rest of what went on. I would love to hear more from the public. As far as there were so many people observing, I didn't know whether they were bringing stuff to the table or they fought against or what they expected. But it was nice to see people getting involved. As usual, I really thought that was great. I wish more people would come to the meetings, even virtual, on some of the other issues, so we could get a better feel of where we're going on some of these issues. But that's it. Thank you very much.
Councilor Dow,
Thank you. I'm all set this time.
Councilor Steves,
I don't have anything tonight.
Councilor Ryan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to kind of respond to Councilor Lazo, it's because all politics is personal. And you know what? Nothing gets more personal than somebody's dog. You know, I'm sitting here with my animals thinking, you know, hard about this. This is a very, it's one of the tougher calls. And one of the tougher things to have to deal with is, you know, dealing with somebody's animal. So I think that's why we saw so much interest. That's all, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Council. To those councilors, in my wildest dreams, I didn't think that hearing was going to turn into how it looks like it's going to go. So look forward to the meeting and make sure that everything's heard. Councilor Marchetti.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just have a couple of things. So first of all, I want to thank the town manager for sending out the information about the businesses that are applying for the CARES Act money. I want to encourage small businesses in Southbridge, please, to the business owners, please apply for these funds. I mean, the funds are available. If you are having any difficulty because of COVID, please apply for these funds. I see the businesses right now, most of them, well, there's one business in Southbridge, but the other ones are in Sturbridge and Charlton. So I really encourage small businesses in Southbridge to apply for these funds. They're sitting right there for you. I did want to, including on that note, I did want to ask about the town hall. I take it that the town hall is still closed. So, there was a notice for the town election. How are people going to get papers for the town election? Or if they need help with the CARES Act money, a small business owner, not everybody has computers. How are they going to get help with some of these things if the town hall is still closed? And through the chairman to the town manager, if you could answer that, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Town Manager.
You're muted.
You missed all the nice things I said. No, I'm kidding. Through you, Mr. Chairman, Councilor Marchetti, all of our offices are fully staffed and people can use the telephone lines. I will coordinate. Our town clerk is not in the office today and tomorrow. But those are issues we'll touch upon. We occasionally have done some things. I know they're swearing in some people by appointment. Certain things we'll go out and meet people outside, not everything. We don't handle regular cash transactions on a regular basis, but certain things we're accommodating people by appointment, but the vast majority of business can still be done by the phone. We can mail out certain things to people. But I can work on the papers specifically on that particular question. So in general, if people don't have the internet, they call town hall, they can call my office, we'll redirect the call. We try and be as accommodating as we can in this particular environment. We're doing our best. But as I said, you know, all the offices are staffed during the day, except for the door being shut. We're operating business as usual to the extent we can.
All right, thank you. That's all I have.
I do know, Councilor Marchetti, when, because we, believe it or not, we're coming on a year now of this pandemic. We were towards the end of papers being taken out last time, and I think that people can just contact Maddie. She would prepare them for whoever wanted papers. They would let them know how many they would like, and they could go in and do the book and everything. And she would accommodate it. So I think it's a simple call to the town clerk's office. She'll accommodate that. So, but I will wait.
There were some people asking about the CARES money and how they could get some help with that. And I know that they should go through Peg, Miss Dean, but I don't know how they sit down with her if they don't have computers or if she can't come out or if the town hall is closed. So that was the other concern. But thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Councilor Adams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just one thing, I was glad to see that the planning board pushed forward the Mellow Tiger business that's hopefully coming to town here in the summer. So it's out of the 4 host agreements for the marijuana, we've marijuana retail, 3 are moving forward. So waiting for the 4th one. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything further? No. No, sir. Councilor Daniel?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know from personal experience, the town clerk is very, very friendly and very helpful. All I have to do is call. And for anyone in the public that's has interest with the town clerk's office, just call ahead, make an appointment, and they'll either meet you outside or bring you in if they need to. There's no problem whatsoever. It's not quite as convenient to just walk in at any time, but I think just having to call and make an appointment ahead of time is perfectly reasonable. And I know that she's very, very helpful. That's all I have. At this point, the next regularly scheduled meeting is 2 weeks from today on Monday, February 8th, 2021.
Thank you. I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved. A motion by Councilor Lazo, second by Councilor Ryan. Roll call.
Councilor Adams,
Yes.
Councilor Daniel,
Yes.
Councilor Dow,
Yes.
Councilor Jovan,
Yes.
Councilor Lazo,
Yes.
Councilor Ryan,
Yes.
and Councilor Steves.
Yes.
You forgot me.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm a yes.
I'll save the best for last. Councilor
Thank you.
Marquetti?
Yes.
Perfect.
Okay, we'll see
I
you
thought
Thursday
my
night.
name came up quick.
Thursday night at 6 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you.